I am very, very honored to introduce this next guest. And when I think about dragons, I think about Carla. She, to me, is the embodiment of the dragon frequency. And ever since I've met her and now developing a friendship with her, it's been a really deep soul journey, soul connection. And honored to have you here, Carla. And I'm just going to give a little bio of who you are for the group. So, Carla is a Reiki master teacher, intuitive energy and sound healer, writer, and multi-dimensional guide. She is the author of Vade Mecum, an always present guide to your divine path, and also publishes Mindful Morsels, a free newsletter on Substack.com. Her mission is to awaken others to the always present guidance and innate power within them so they can step into their highest, most authentic vision for themselves. Carla uncovered some of her psychic abilities early in life, where clairvoyance her most active gift. She channels guidance through aura readings, verbal channeling, light language, and in her healing treatments. She began consciously reconnecting with the dragons in 2020, eventually uncovering her past life connections where she has served as a bridge between the human and the dragon realms. As part of her honoring her dragon lineage, Carla created her signature Dragon Energy course, which she has been teaching since 2022, continuously expanding the content and format. She helps activate dragon connection in others through her courses and offerings. And she is hosting her first Dragon Forest retreat on April 30th to May 2nd in California, near the Russian River. Oh, wow. I love all the work you're doing and welcoming you, Carla, to the conference. And would you kindly unmute your mic?
Hello. Yes. Thank you, Flo. Hello,
Welcome.
everyone. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. If you don't mind, I'd like to share just a few slides to guide us, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
It's
I
all
think you can
yours.
screen. I think that, let's skip that. So I just wanted to start by sharing a little bit about how my connection with the dragons unfolded so that you have a bit of background on why I'm doing the work I do and how all of that started to connect with me, for me. And then I think I'll share some information on the ways that you can connect with your dragons. I have some what I think are interesting tidbits in terms of how we work with our personal dragons, our garden dragons, which we all have. A lot of the information I have has come through during channelings or sometimes during activations. So I know I can't go through everything that I normally share with in my course, but we'll see what we can cover today. So early in my work with the dragons, I started doing, or I started connecting with them when I would do readings for others, or I'd be in channeling sessions, and I began connecting other people to their dragons. So I found this really puzzling because I had just started connecting with the dragons. So in my mind, I was thinking, well, I've just started opening up this connection with them. How is it that I'm able to connect others to their dragons? So I asked about this in a channeling back in 2021, and this was what they had said. So apparently, in one of my past lives, I was part of their collective, and I have served many times as a bridge between the human realm and the dragon realm. So in my current lifetime, I am returning or bringing back that role. So it's part of why I've created my dragon course, which the dragons pushed me to do. There was a lot of doubt in the beginning, like, who am I to create a dragon course? I'm just learning about you guys. But they were quite insistent. So that's part of how my course was birthed, but also why it is continuing to evolve. So anyway, I have all my students are welcome to attend future classes for free because of this constant evolution when it comes to my dragon course. So that was what they explained to me. And a little bit more about my connection with them. Just like Neil shared earlier, I love everybody's presentations, by the way. I'm sitting here for most of it until I have to drop off. But just like Neil had shared, some of the information he received is similar to how I've received my own information. They've come to me through hypnosis sessions or channeling, meditation, dreams and visions. I have really wild dreams. I've had them since I was a child. So a lot of it comes through that. Very symbolic information. And it's always like puzzle pieces. I always call them puzzle pieces because our guides never give us more than what we can absorb and integrate. Um, at any given time. So it's this constant receiving of little tidbits here and there, and we piece the puzzle pieces together. But that's what makes life really exciting. So as much as we want information right away, this is how we'll be receiving them. So in a BQH, which is like what Bridget Renee does, during a BQH session back in 2021, I found myself in what I call the dragon realm. This was a very, very lush place. There were dragons everywhere of all sizes, colors. Some of them were resting by the waterfall. And this became confirmation for me later on, but when I found myself in that realm, I looked down at myself to see what I looked like, to get more information on that lifetime. And instead of hands, when I looked down, I saw black talons. And that was confirmation that it was a red fire dragon in that lifetime. That was later confirmed in a channeling. So it all connects together. Things I receive through one reading or session connects to something else that is given to me later on. So that's just the nature of how we work with our guides. And then in 2022, I was part of a channeling and initiation sort of process where part of who we channeled was a Dragon Collective. And then in that session, they revealed that I was also one of the ancient dragons, like one of them. And that session was very powerful because it was learning a lot of learning on my part in terms of what the dragons really want us as humans to understand is that we have that power within all of us. And they want us to really step into that power and be courageous. I don't know how many times they've told me, stop playing small. That is what they want for everybody because we need to really embrace that power that we all have within us. And it's part of why I have been led to do some other work with them. So this year, my work with the dragons has expanded from teaching about the foundational knowledge around dragons, which I do in my course, but also mentoring, starting to mentor others to embody that dragon consciousness. I have some of my students in the audience today, and I know they've heard some of this, so I'm glad they're here, but there is so much magic happening when it comes to really embracing that dragon energy and that dragon consciousness, because they really want us to stand in our power, as I've said. And this awakening of the dragon consciousness, or reawakening, if you will, what I learned this year is that that's all part of our collective ascension, and it really is an integral part of us awakening as a human collective, and that's why it is so important. This is just some information on, or a snippet from a channeling. Why I'm sharing this is because when it comes to those puzzle pieces, the dragon energy, I mean, dragons are huge and fierce. Their energy is strong. So sometimes people are maybe a little hesitant to connect with them or really invite them and open their field to them. They can look scary, but that's only if we go with our, previous conditioning and how they've been depicted in history. So I've experienced that when they reveal themselves to me, sometimes they do a little bit before they come into the picture. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But in one of my meditations, I saw smoke coming out of my mouth, and that's when that was the early stages of me understanding and learning that I was a fire dragon. But when I asked about this, the dragons were kind of careful also in saying, "Well, are you afraid? Are you fearful of this?" Um, and as I began to accept more of my lineage, they began showing me more and revealing more and connecting more, and I started meeting other dragons. So just wanted to share that for you to keep that in mind as you expand in your connection with the dragons. Sorry, I'm so thirsty. Okay. I wanted to touch on guardian dragons. So a lot of people find this subject interesting, and perhaps you already know about guardian dragons. But what I wanted to share is some information that's come through in my own, connections with them that I didn't previously know, and that I don't necessarily see in the literature. Um, Many people connect with the dragons, and it's not initially their personal dragon. That's the case with me. My first vision of a dragon was not of my personal dragon, and I didn't meet my dragon until later. They're similar to our guardian angels, but their energies are very distinct, and they stay with us through all our incarnations. They protect us, they guide us, they travel with us on the astral plane. But what I found interesting is that as we ourselves grow spiritually, our guardian dragons grow as well. So it's this beautiful partnership where we're growing spiritually and they in turn are growing with us. So I've seen that where the very first visions I had of my personal dragon is now very different from how he looks later on. Like months after I first met him, he started looking different. And he would also appear in readings that I received from others, but differently, like an old ancient dragon. Kind of tired sometimes, but with a very young heart, which is kind of how I feel sometimes. But the uh, the guardian dragons also, because they protect us, part of their role is to protect us. And when we travel on the astral realm, they are there with us. One of the other interesting things I'll share is that our experiences in the astral sometimes carry over into our physical life. I don't know if any of you have woken up from dreaming, if you remember your dreams or not, but you may sometimes wake up and feel achy without having done anything to really explain away these aches and pains. So one morning I woke up and I had some hip pain, and the hip pain was the type of pain where I felt like I was straddling something all night. And it was explained later on in a channeling that yes, some of this carries over, and I was writing dragons in on the astral. It was in one of my dreams. So I tend to do a lot of battles on the astral, so I'm kind of used to that. But it's nice to know, especially for those of you who are light warriors, that they are there to help you, and you can call on them before you go to sleep at night, just to ask for them to stay close by. There's many ways that you can connect with your garden dragon, meditation, of course, but you can just ask themselves to reveal themselves through you, whether it's through vision, dreams, and your meditation. But it's important that you work with them in this partnership, and asking them to come into your life or to present themselves and be more present in your life also requires that you pay attention to those signs that they give you. Um, and then also, it's just important to remember that it's all about that vibrational frequency, just like anything else. Because when we work with the dragons, they're they they're very intelligent, they're very ancient. The ones I work with are mainly those from the angelic realm, those that are connected to the primordial dragons that were around and helped create the earth um, eons ago. And because they're very confident and they want to awaken that same confidence in you, they also tend to be very direct. Sometimes they can come across as stern, My experience with them is there's no fluff. They're very direct. They're to the chase. They're no nonsense. I don't even know if I've had any interactions with adult or grown dragons that are um, you'd say light or joking. But the younglings, and I'll talk about them in a little bit, the younglings are a little more fun and more playful, but not the case with the older dragons from my experience. I call on them a lot in my healing sessions. There are a couple little ones that are always there at the client's feet. They help burn away the energies. So if you want to work with the dragons, you can call on them for different things, like when you're traveling. They have been very helpful with that. I have dragon students that I've introduced to basically the benefits of working with dragons when it comes to parking spaces. I know it sounds a little silly, but hey, we could all use that help. Um, I did ask my garden dragon once when this first started happening, because like looking for a parking space is hardly ever a challenge these days, regardless where I go. And my garden dragon said that that was not him helping me. It was a little trivial for him to help me with. But my what I gathered from that is it's really the younger dragons that are helping with that. And part of why they want to help us is because it's part of their growth. Dragons, because their energy is very fierce and strong. One thing to know is they cannot be tamed or controlled, and you cannot trick dragons. They can always sense what your intentions are. So, what they always ask is that you come from pure intentions when you work with them. But if you were to ask them to do something that was not, of pure intentions, they're just not going to respond. And they choose to work with us when we're ready. They've been very clear to me that it's not so much that we call on the dragons and they'll appear. There has to be that vibrational resonance, and that one must be ready to work with them. And by ready, just think about really coming from that pure space of unconditional love and purity of heart. Um, let's see, what else do I want to say? Another thing I've learned with them is whatever crystal you work with, the dragons are great to work with the crystals, because they can amplify the properties of that crystal. I'm just gonna go through this to make sure we have enough time. So part of what the reason they are coming back in full force, I'm sure you guys have noticed, I certainly have noticed that just in the last couple of years since I started teaching my dragon course, is they are really everywhere. When I first started teaching my course, there were maybe a few people who would come to me and say, hey, I saw this dragon, what does that mean? But since then, more and more people are really becoming aware of the presence of the dragons, which is wonderful. And this is why they're coming back in full force, is also part of one, our collective having raised its consciousness more, but also because they are really needed in our ascension. So this is why you're seeing them everywhere. I have a habit of taking photos of dragon clouds. My students love that too, so we all share that. In fact, this morning when I sat down, I just glanced out the window and another dragon cloud was there. So pay attention sometimes. You guys might have some fun just like noticing the dragons in the clouds. They are everywhere. Some of them really uncanny, really looking like dragons. One of the things I wanted to share is how, and I think there's somebody in this group who will be talking about dragon portals or already has, but many light workers are opening dragon portals. The first time I opened a dragon portal was in a forest in a city called Cambria on the Central Coast here in California. I was doing a reading for a good friend of mine, my co-channeler Ryan, and I had a vision of this clearing in the forest, a clearing in the forest, and I got the sense that it was in the fourth dimension. It wasn't wasn't the fifth dimension, but it wasn't in 3D either. It was like in this in between space. And maybe a month later, we met in person in Cambria and we did our little forest walk and we came upon this place and I said, stop, this is exactly the clearing that I saw in my vision. So we were there, we tapped in, we meditated, and I saw this, the bottom line is I opened this portal in that space, like in my vision, because it was exactly what I saw, where there was a portal opening, like this vortex in on the forest floor, and all these dragons flew out, all different sizes, all different colors. It was amazing, and they were flying off. And then I followed my guidance, left the portal open, but put this golden mesh over it so as not to seal it completely, but so that we could keep any elements that we didn't want coming out and underground. The other thing connected to that experience is that I also had I think it was a dream shortly before this, of dragons that were imprisoned underground. It was like this dungeon, and they were behind bars, and there were a few of them. And I didn't understand it at that time. It wouldn't really come to light until later, just what that meant. And when I was in that forest, my guidance told me, no, it's not time to release them yet. And I actually felt bad. I'm like, they're dragons, they're imprisoned. But the guide said, no, not yet, not yet. So months after that, I was guided to send more dragons off. They tend to call on me and say, send more off. In the beginning, they were like, you need to call on us more. You're not doing that. But anyway, so the second time I did this, theoretically, I didn't have to go there in person, but this forest dragon that guided us wanted me to do this again. And there was a unicorn that also showed up at the entrance of that portal. And it was after sending off the second set of dragons that I sealed it up. I've sent them off to different areas. I think at that time there was the conflict in Ukraine and Russia and all of that happening. So know that you are powerful and can send them off with pure intention to different parts of the world that need it. And as we know, it's sorely needed right now. The second portion also in terms of bridging the new earth. This year, I've been guided to, or I've been called to awaken sleeping dragons. This isn't something I was doing before, but this year it's been coming in really strongly, awaken the sleeping dragons. And it's all part of us reawakening the dragon consciousness in us to help us bridge that new earth reality. One of the things, I'm going to introduce you to just a few dragons that I work with that I think you might want to work with yourselves. So, the mother dragon and the younglings, this started when in 2021, I had two dreams in the same night. I was in the dream, I was at my kitchen sink and I opened an egg. Inside the egg was a newborn dragon. There were two eggs. One was, so inside was a white, colorless newborn dragon. And then later in the same night, I had another dream or a vision. It was another dragon hatching from an egg, but this was slightly bigger. It was also white, but with cobalt blue along the edges of its tail. And then in a channeling later on, I met a mother dragon. She just referred to herself as mother. And I knew it was a mother because it was so different than all the other dragons that I connected with. And in this photo here is where you'll see that she's built a little differently. And this is how I saw her, where she's a little wider at the bottom, and there were a bunch of baby dragons by her, by her feet. I asked her about that dream of the dragon eggs and the significance of that, and her answer was beautiful. It actually really touched me. She said that those were new dragons that were being groomed to join our cause. So since then, I've worked with a number of them, of the younglings, and I think what was dropping in also for today's session is that these younglings want to work with you guys. So we'll see if we have some time. But anyway, these younglings they're fun, they're playful, they're mischievous as well. I started sensing before I knew about them, before I met the mother dragon and the younglings, I would sense them by my legs. Like I'd feel like there's something, you know, playing around my legs, and I look down and there isn't any. I have rabbits, and at one point, one of them would like come stay with me every time I, did any channeling. I'm sure she was sensing the energy, but every time I looked, it wasn't her. And so they did that with me. They would play with me, mess around in my feet, sometimes mess with my bunnies. But what was beautiful is that I learned that these youngling dragons are very eager to partner with us because it's also helping them in their development. I just want to share a brief story about this little dragon. This is the closest I could get for it to look like what I saw. But 2 or 3 years ago, when I was driving my daughter to school, I began seeing this dragon. I ended up naming this dragon Lemon in my back seat. So at the time, I was connecting with my daughter's dragon, and I had asked, my daughter was in high school at the time, and I asked her dragon to be with her and protect her while at school. So when I dropped off my daughter at school, her dragon went with her. And then I drove off, and Lemon was still in the back seat. So this happened for several days. And I started communicating with it. On one of those trips, one of those drives, when I take a certain route, or I used to take a certain route back to the freeway after dropping off my daughter, there's another school that I pass by, which is an elementary school. And something told me that Lemon wanted to go learn from the kids, just and go to the school, just like my daughter's dragon was with her. So I just asked, do you want to go to this school and learn from them? And it was so cute. She just like started like almost jumping up and down in the back seat, super excited about that. So I sent her off and said, yeah, go. And this happened a few times, and then I didn't see her. And then the next time I saw her, it was kind of glitchy. The image of her in my back seat that's all I can say. It was like glitchy, where she was like going in between dimensions. When I connected with the mother dragon after that, she told me about that yellow dragon that I was seeing, and what was beautiful is that Lemon was observing me and learning about our ways as humans. And the reason I was seeing her as glitchy is because she or he kept bouncing back and forth between the dimensions, trying to figure out which one is the dimension she or he wants to stay in. And then at the end of the day, realizes it's all the same, not one is better than the other. So I share that story because this partnership with the dragons is so important, because we're not only learning from them and benefiting from their protection and their guidance, they're also learning from us. And this is why I think there are more of these youngling dragons coming through, because they're wanting to work with us. Couple more dragons I'll introduce you to. The Alchemy Dragon is someone I met, 2022. So this was an interesting one. I tend to get visions while I'm on an airplane, because the sound of the engine, all of that, you get into the state. So I get a lot of visions that way. Um, on a flight back from New York, I met this green black dragon, and the way he presented himself to me was just the two glowing green eyes staring at me. And I guess what I think is what was happening was that he was sensing whether or not I'd be afraid, because it's different than any of the dragons I've seen. And when I opened myself up to that vision, slowly his whole face came into view. And weeks after that, I channeled him, and he explained that he carries the energy of alchemy. I've since partnered with him on healings and activations. Some of you here might have worked with him, but he is a wonderful dragon guide to work with, to transmute dense energies and alchemize them. Um, anyway, there's some interesting stuff also from that channeling. But his eyes are fluorescent green. He breathes fluorescent green flame. This artwork right here, I happened to just like literally stumble upon a day or two after I had that vision. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, that is almost exactly like the vision I saw. So I love this. It's not mine, so it's properly credited there. So definitely work with him. Sometimes often he releases these orbs of green flame. I've used it in partnership with him to kind of sweep a person's field. I've seen it enter their physical, and basically sometimes it's like a magnet. It just like attracts the dense energy, almost like if you had a large magnet. And I like to think, or I've seen it also as, like iron shavings, where it will just become drawn to that. And that's how I've seen him collect or gather those dense energies and then run it through and then just release it from the person's field. So I don't know if anyone here has met this dragon. I named him the Alchemy Dragon because he said that's the energy he carries, but certainly call on him if you feel called to do that. Um, there's a dragon I met that looks like this with the glowing red eyes. That particular dragon showed up for I think it was a co-channeling circle, and it did an activation for that group. Some of the others I work with are what I call the pink dragons of love. They carry this energy of love, and they're channeling their messages that they channel through are about love. And um, I love working with them, with the big dragons of love, because it's so easy to call on them and they will just like show up. And I found myself like sitting in traffic and just getting this urge to call on them. And you can do that, just send them off to people sitting in front of you and back of you, just wherever you really want to work with them. Just call on them. Dragons want you to call on them. They're not well, yes, they're bound to the law of request, so it's not like they can just interfere. But certainly, if you have that urge and to call on the dragon energy, I really encourage you to call on these dragons and the others. Some of the other dragons I work with, I've mentioned here. I wanted to do a specific to call out specifically uh, the different energy signatures between the dragons. So just like our different guides, like our galactics, Arcturians, and other our interdimensional guides, or the archangels and the angels and ascended masters, they all have different energy signatures. The different dragons also carry different energy signatures. So the galactic dragons tend to feel cold. I've worked with a galactic dragon. He's the personal dragon of somebody close to me, and his energy is like icy cold. He's like an ice dragon. So even within that temperature of cold, there are degrees of that where some are very icy. And whenever we would channel this dragon, we would feel really icy in our hands and our feet, our legs. And then once he leaves our field, our temperature goes back to normal. Some of them feel very hot, some feel neutral. There are some where you feel their energetic signature as hot internally, but outside it's cold, or outside it's neutral, or vice versa. So I wanted to call that out so that you can also pay attention to that when you work with the dragons. Um, and I will also say that it's possible as you work with the dragons and integrate more of their energies, that your experience of their energy can change. That happened to me when I received an activation that was done in tandem by my guardian dragon and this ice dragon that I talked about. They gave me an activation, and what happened after that is the ice dragon stopped feeling cold. Um, and it was strange because right away I used to always feel that iciness. And I asked about that, and there's a beautiful channeling on that my students have seen. But in summary, what he said was that as you integrate these energies, it becomes a part of you. And the analogy he gave was, if you take I'm paraphrasing, but if you take an ice cube and another one, and you put them together, one does not feel cold to the other because they're of the same properties. So in that sense, because I integrated their energies, I no longer felt that icy coldness because it was no longer in stark contrast to my own energy signature. I hope that makes sense. But I thought that was another very interesting thing to learn from them. One of the things I love sharing about, because this is such an interesting group of dragons. I've dubbed them the Christ consciousness dragons. I first met them over 3 years ago. I was conducting a reading for someone who's very connected with Yeshua, and I had this very moving image of Yeshua standing in the middle, surrounded by these so many white dragons, and I didn't even see their faces because they had their wings over them and they were bowing to him, and their wings were like unlike any other dragons I've ever seen. I can't even find an image. I tried using AI to explain, or I mean to illustrate those wings. Can't get them to do it. I've tried for many months, but they're curved. They're almost like scallop kind of along the edges, very smooth. So they're very different. They're very distinct. And usually I only see them with certain people who have that deep connection with Yeshua. And that's why I named them the Christ consciousness dragons, because I was always seeing these dragons with Yeshua. Um, uh, and always connected to him. So just like they look different, their energetic signature is also very distinct. It's this very deep and permeating sense of unconditional love and compassion. And when I receive information from them, it's also different. It's very telepathic and very much through feeling. And I know some other guides come through that way, but I think human this is where human words are just so inadequate to explain what we're feeling, like we know it internally. So I would love for nothing else than you guys to meet these dragons at some point. Because they are just I can't explain the feeling that they give you, but it's just like being in this warm embrace of this very, very deep unconditional love. Not even the same as angels, it's different. So I wanted to share that. Um, and they're coming through more. So I didn't know if I didn't know if I'd have time to do an activation, but part of me also thinks that um I don't know if, and Flo, love your input here. I don't know if we want to do a Q&A, or I could connect people with the younglings to work with them. The reason I'm hesitant to do an activation is because my activations tend to go deep. And people come out sometimes a little like they need time to come back. So I don't know if you want to do a Q&A. I'm also paying attention
Yeah,
to the
I think the Q&A is a great idea.
awesome. I will stop the share.
Would anyone like to, if you feel called to post a question, actually we have some questions, but feel free to post a question. Actually, okay, just checking. So, okay, I don't see any questions now, but while people are doing that, I've also experienced Yeshua as a dragon, and I have my own perspectives, but I'm curious, why do you sense Yeshua comes as in dragon form?
He actually he doesn't come to me in dragon form. I've seen him standing in the middle of dragons, but I think you're asking why you're seeing him in dragon form. Uh, Intuitively, what I'm getting is that Christ consciousness energy is very much tied to the dragon energy that's within each of us. And I always see it as, our pillar of light, that Christ consciousness, which to me is very related to that primordial dragon energy that's within us. I don't know if that answers your question.
Absolutely. Someone once told me, and it really resonated with me. It's like our higher selves are dragons. So as we expand and evolve, it's our destiny to become this dragon again.
Yes.
So yes,
Yeah.
that definitely relates. Neil, curious if you have any questions, because I don't see any in the comments so
No
far.
questions, but hello,
Oh,
Carla. Thank you so much
question.
for everything.
Sorry,
Presentation is incredible.
there is one question.
Yeah, do it.
233. Do different dragon colors have different roles, expertise? I know you've talked of red and white and now black.
I liken it to humans, where we come in different shades, different colors, and it's not so much, and they've given me confirmation of this, it's not so much that one means something. Although in some cases I end up tapping into what the energy of that dragon is, like the black dragon that carries the divine feminine energy, but it doesn't mean that all black dragons are that type of energy signature. Very interestingly, I'm like almost halfway through a dragon consciousness program with my students, and just I don't know, 2 days ago, this violet dragon showed up, and he carried the energy of the violet flame, which was very interesting.
Wow, very fascinating. There's one last question, and we'll finish off. Is any experience with dragons helping with weather or earthquake mitigation?
Hmm. I think that when it comes to weather, we can call on the elemental dragons to assist with that. I've called on them when it tends to get a little windy here where I live. I'm in a valley, and sometimes it's like super, super windy, like almost scary because I have tall pine trees that are kind of old. And I call on them to kind of calm the weather. So certainly you can call on them to help with that. I would call on the elemental dragon specifically.
Beautiful. And I know we said one more,
One
but
more,
there's one
one
more.
more
And I feel, yeah, I think it's important. Neil, do you want to ask?
Yeah, I'll just say real quick that as I shared earlier, I'm here in the Azores, and it's raining, it's windy, it's cloudy, it's sunny, and every day for the last 5 days we've been to the mountains, and it's been cloudy, and we've been invoking the elemental dragons to clear the way, and it's actually worked. Like as soon as we get there, it's completely blocked. We can't see anything, and then all of a sudden, this just gust of air comes through, and the sun just right over the crater comes right through and we even see like shapes of dragons in the clouds. So just to go
Yes.
with what you just said, yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay,
I
so
will. Can I say just one thing because
yeah,
the dragons are dropping that in. When it comes to the elemental energy, they want to remind us that that is in our power as well. It's why it's actually the focus of the first level of my program. It's because that elemental magic is something we have access to in our own power. So just something they
mm,
wanted to share.
exactly.
Beautiful.
So we have a question from Miranda here. She's saying, did anyone else experience patterns on the skin pop? I think that's for everybody in the room. I asked to experience my personal dragon when you suggested it, then looked down and there was an unexplained pattern on my skin.
Wow.
And then we have one more question here for Marimer.
Yeah, this is a good question, I think.
What dragons can we actively collectively what dragons can we activate collectively to bring peace to the Middle East?
I would call on the pink dragons of love. They're the ones I've set off before when it comes to conflict. And I would say the Christ consciousness dragons as well. But I'm the person that will always tell you follow your guidance. Um, like my role is not to tell you do this, do that. I mean, I'm just guiding you. But your strongest teacher is yourself, your inner guidance. So also tune into that.
Amazing. And I feel that's part of the lessons that they're here to teach us is to teach us that we are our own avatars, right? And
Yes, yes.
getting out of the age, as we spoke about earlier, of the guru in order to realize we're the self guru and the true guardians and wisdom keepers are those that teach us how to do these magical things ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Mhm.
Wow, that
Carla,
was awesome.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Likewise.
Love you, Carla. And she'll be sharing her information in the chat if you want to learn more about her dragon courses and all the magic she's up to.
I'll drop that in there. Thanks.
Thanks, Carla. Take care.